right, let's talk about measuring angles. I think this is something that's pretty fun, and I hope you do too. Now, in my math group, we have been measuring angles using actual protractors. So, before we even start, let's even talk about what an angle is. An angle is the point at which two lines or line segments or rays meet. So here are some different kinds of angles. You can have two lines here, and here's the point at which they meet. And typically, when we name angles, we start at one end of the line, the point where the point where the angle forms and the two lines, rays, or line segments meet is called the vertex. And then when we extend the other line of the angle out, we can call it a letter. And now, so this, look at that. This angle is called angle A, B, C. It could also be called angle C, B, A. If I have, just to explain this point a little bit more, let's say I have an angle that goes that way, faces a different direction, and it's called a D here, and an E here, and an F here. And they don't have to go in alphabetical order, but for simplicity's sake, they often do. My E is looking pretty funky. We call this, and we denote this sign, we use this sign to show angle. So angle DEF. And can you guess what we might call this angle if we, in another way? We can call it FED, spells fed. So that's just some basic information. Now let's talk about how we measure an angle. And so one thing I should tell you is when we are measuring an angle, we're measuring sort of this measure. The length of space between the lines. And the language that we use is to measure an angle is called degrees. So every angle is some number of degrees. So that's our starting point. Now, I don't know if you can see, so this tool here, hopefully you can see it around my tracing, is called a protractor. And this is just a protractor printed on a paper. And the protractor, usually it's a tool we use, measures an angle. You usually place it on an angle, and here is the angle that we are measuring. And then this line over here shows that we're looking at this angle as opposed to that angle. We're not looking at that. We're looking, it's pointing out that we're going on this side. And this is where it gets interesting. So on a protractor, we have numbers that, so you have the middle point and then you have 0. And you always want to line up one of the lines with 0. But you'll notice that we start with 0 and then we go to 10 and then 20 and 30 and so forth all the way to 180 in this direction. But we also have numbers on the top, and they similarly go from 0 to 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 and so on, all the way to 180 that way. So how do we know when we are measuring an angle which one to use? Do we use the numbers on the bottom, or do we use the numbers on the top? Well, the answer is this, is that if the angle opens up to the right, it opens rightward, as this one does. See, it faces the right. The angle faces the right. We are going to use the numbers on the bottom to tell us how many degrees the angle is. So in this case, this angle, you can see that this, oopsies, that this line goes through the number, oh, it's not really, I'm not doing a good job of tracing it, goes through the number 60, right straight through. It is 60 degrees. It's not 120 degrees. That's the top line, and that's for angles that face out towards the left. This angle is 60 degrees. And you can see here I've written out degrees, but we can also write degrees using a little circle up to the right of the number. So I could also say 60 degrees. That's another way. Just like when we have when we measure the temperature, Fahrenheit or Celsius, it's similar. We use the similar symbol. So this angle is 60 degrees. How about this angle? Let's take a look at it. So the first thing I need to ask myself is, do I use the numbers on the bottom? They're kind of grayer than the ones on the top, or do I use these ones in bold black, these ones? And the first thing I need to say is, well, does my angle open out to the right or open out to the left? Well, I'm noticing it's opening out to the right. It's facing to the right. If, and I'll draw another angle here, if it was like that. Here I drew another terrible angle, but hey, it's bothering me. I gotta fix it. If it looked like that, and it had this little line there, this angle that I've just drawn is opening out to the left, which means I would use the top numbers. And here we have an angle that is 50 degrees. It's just facing the other direction. But let's answer, this is a question from a worksheet that I gave my students. And so here we see, we line the protractor up. When we have a protractor up with the 0, one line goes there. The other line looks at what number on the bottom the angle goes through, and I can see that it's 110. So this angle is 110 degrees. Oh, I don't even need that circle because I have written degrees here. And by the way, the midpoints here, oopsies, didn't mean to do that. Let me get this back to where it needs to be. These midpoints here are just, they go up by 5. So let's say I have an angle that goes here. This would be 55 degrees. Hopefully you get the idea. And now let's do one more. What angle is this? Well, I see again that this angle opens out to the right. I see that it goes through the 10 tick mark. So this angle is 10 degrees. Now here, I don't have an angle. I'm going to draw some angles. Let's see. Let's make them, what color? Let's make them purple, just for kicks. Now, I am going to draw an angle. And I'm going to draw the line here, faces out to the right. And what I have drawn is something called a right angle. A right angle has two perfectly perpendicular lines. And they form, this is a right, actually we can usually denote a right angle by drawing a sort of like a box, and it is always 90 degrees. So that's a 90-degree angle. Now, can you tell me, I'm going to draw an angle, and you tell me what value the angle is. So hopefully you have noticed that the angle opens out to the left and it goes through, so we're going to use the top number since it opens out to the left. Basically, more or less goes through 60. So that angle would be 60 degrees. Let's do another one, just for kicks. What's that angle? Well, if you said to yourself that angle is 65 degrees, smack between 60 and 70, you would be correct. Okay, I'm going to do one more just because we're having all this fun. This is a more challenging one. Oops, didn't mean to do that. My line's so good. What measures this angle? Now you might be tempted to say 60 degrees, but keep in mind that the angle is opening out to the left. So we need to use the top line. And what do we get? We're going to use the top line. This angle is actually 120 degrees. And that is all for now. Now you can measure angles.